to be well with your health. Welcome to the Adventist Healthcare and You podcast. I'm Shanna.
And I'm Nimit.
How are you doing, Nimit?
I'm doing great. I'm excited.
Good, me too. We have another very special guest with us today, Mr. Joel Schuler, a heart attack survivor. Welcome.
Thank you, Shanna and Nimit. Excited to be with you here today.
Thank you. We are too. We don't often get to have actual patients on our podcast, and we love to hear stories direct from you and your experience. And it's just really wonderful to have you today. So thank you for giving up your time to come in and share your story with our listeners.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I think I'm excited about today's podcast because just listening from our patients is so valuable. Just making the impact we're making in your lives. I think it's so valuable to have that insight. So with that, why don't you start telling us about yourself?
Well, again, like I said, thank you for the opportunity today. And just to introduce myself, I am Joel Schuler. I am a resident here in Maryland. I live in Silver Spring Olney area with my wife, Corinne, and son, Ethan. And we've been here about 12 years now.
Oh, you count. Yep, you're a Marylander now. You're a Marylander.
I've been here for 12 years too, so I'm a Marylander.
Yeah, so love the area. This is where my wife and I first started dating. And we started dating back in 2011 when I moved here, and we got married a year later. And now today we have a family and enjoying life there. And
good. All right. You're here today to share a story about something that happened to you. It was a couple years ago. Do you mind just kind of telling us what happened for you?
Well, first of all, I'll share that I am a believer, and person of faith. My family is a person of faith, and always believe that I'd be here for a long time to share time with my family and my kids. Back in March of 2022, I woke up about 5:30 in the morning, and I had a really, really sharp pain in my left arm. It was a pain that resembled a really severe cramp. And I sat up in the bed, and I thought it was a cramp. So I thought eventually it would subside and I'll go back to sleep at least a few more minutes. It didn't subside. It continued severely, and my wife woke up and she noticed that I was also sitting up in bed. She asked me if I was okay. And I said, no, I think I have a cramp. And she said, well, if it's not subsiding, why don't you take a Motrin? So I went downstairs and took a Motrin, and I kind of just sit there on the sofa, and it still wasn't going away. And shortly after, she followed me down there, and she became very concerned because this had never happened before. And at that time, she knows I resist going to the hospital.
Well, you don't think I can take it.
I was going to say many of us do, right? Unfortunately.
I resist just going to the hospital. I don't like being in the hospital, but she said, hey, I'm calling the ambulance, and I shared with her, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a cramp. She goes, no way. I'm calling the ambulance, or I'm driving you. And I'm like, okay, let's get in the car and drive there. We got there, and we walked in, and they did the triage. And part of the triage, they took a EKG just based on what I was describing. And then they had me go up to the front desk and start to register. But no sooner than I was up there, they called me back again and said, hey, we need to do the EKG again. And so I went back again, and within a few minutes, they were rolling a wheelchair up, and they were saying, hey, you're having a heart attack, and we need to prep you for surgery. And of course, emotional, my wife finding this out.
That's not something you want to hear.
Not wanting to hear this. And of course, me, all kinds of thoughts running through my head. Just background on me, I'm a avid runner, distance runner. I ran multiple marathons. I run at least a half marathon every year. So I run pretty regular, and I'm active. I had just ran a half marathon in January. So, and I eat pretty well.
Relatively healthy.
Right? Relatively healthy. So never in my mind I thought I would be in that type of circumstance. So we go upstairs, and we're in the room where they're getting ready to perform the procedure. And I'm told I had two blockages. One was at 100%, and another one was at 95%. Wow. They were going to take care of one at that moment, but they were going to do two at the same time. So the 100% blockage is where they're going to start. Okay. Keep in mind, I've never been in a hospital on an operating table.
It's all new, all
this
strange.
This is all new. So everything coming to my mind. Are they going to put me to sleep? Am I going to wake up? I just don't know.
And what's going to happen to my family?
And I'm just remembering my whole time, saying goodbye to my son, and the nurse said on the first floor is, hey, just anything you want to say to him before he goes up. This is serious. And it just replayed through my mind. But the staff there was really friendly. I just still remember that day. They were very joyful. They were playing music in there, which is it just reminded me of an episode of House that I watched a while ago. But they prepped me. They told me what to expect. They didn't put me to sleep. They just did some local anesthesia, and they went in my groin area. And just within a matter of a minute or so after they insert the stent, the pain start to subside immediately. I felt a relief of pressure. It was just so rapid. And then that was only the first part. They said they would do the other procedure a different day, but later that afternoon, the doctor came in and said, we can't do it here, but we have an opening over at Adventist Health in White Oak, which is where they transferred me, and they were able to take care of the next procedure that afternoon. So I ended up getting the next procedure that afternoon, and the 95% blockage was clear, so I ended up getting 2 stents. And I'm so thankful for doctors and the amazing technology, because of everything I've seen on TV. I just imagined that they were going to put me on a table and they were going to cut open my chest.
Oh, yeah.
Had no idea that technology was so amazing, where they could just use the technology, guide something through your groin or guide something through your arm, because I had my second stent come through my right wrist, which was it was amazing. And the doctors are so skilled. So I'm thankful today that it was just amazing staff and just informative all the way.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for sharing this. I think it's just so brave to share your experiences, just living through that. I know it happened 2 years ago, but still just walking through those memories kind of come back, and you're feeling those same emotions. So just thank you for sharing that.
And very relatable too.
Very much so.
My wife made me go, and and
kudos to your wife.
I know, yes,
you.
yeah. And then
kudos to her.
And then
today.
the thoughts and the experiences at both places that you had to kind of go through and experience and meet different staff members, and it can be so confusing too at the same time, because it's not what you think. It's it's not what's on TV sometimes.
Yes.
So.
Indeed, and one of the things that I just remember coming out of it, they encouraged me, make sure you do cardio rehab. And in my mind, I said, why? I work out every day. And make sure you do cardio rehab. So I did that. I did 6 weeks of cardio rehab because I had this huge ambition that I was going to run the Berlin Marathon, which it took me 3-4 years to register for. It's a lottery system. So you put your name in the hat every year. And that happened to be the same year I got selected.
So you had your heart attack in early 2022?
In March of 2022.
March of 2022, and then when was the race?
Berlin Marathon was in September of 2022.
Okay, so you had a lot to get ready for.
Were you able to make it?
Yeah.
Well, first I went through cardio rehab, and then I had to wait to July to do a stress test, which was that final, hey, you can run now. So I started training around the end of July. So I had about a month and a half of training, and I did make it. I did make the
That's awesome.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you had cardiac rehab with Adventist Healthcare, correct?
With Adventist at the White Oak facility. Awesome staff there. It was very family-like and beautiful facility, by the way. It was there 3 days a week for 6 weeks.
And you ran. How did you do?
Yeah.
How'd you do?
I finished.
How did it feel? You finished it.
That's huge.
How'd you feel afterwards?
It just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
That's one of my life joys, is one of my escapes, I call it, is to just run and distance running. And I have this goal where I want to run all 6 majors. And that was number 4 of the 6. So just to be back out there, to be running 26.2 miles and be able to stand up at the end and just reflect on how the year began.
How far you came. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you think before March 2022 that you were ever have a heart attack, or what was your thought process like before, considering how healthy you were and the lifestyle you had? And now how has that changed after the heart attack? So what things do you have in mind now, and what advice would you give somebody else?
That's a great question, Emmett. I would say never in my mind had I thought of
Yeah.
that I had a heart attack. And the only person in my family that I knew had a heart attack before was my mom's brother. So he's the only person I knew that had one. And I thought I was doing all the right things, not just because I don't want to have a heart attack, but I just like to be active, like to stay in shape. But now I will say the anxiety, even after you're done with the surgery and all the rehab, just the thought of, hey, that pain returning and then you're not being able to do anything about it. There's still some anxious moments there. Right?
I mean, any discomfort or you know, even a slight pain could,
That's it.
you know, have that impact because you're like, oh, what if it is another heart attack? What if I'm just not realizing it?
Yes. And the way I approach it is just mentally, just control what I can control. I try to eat as well as I can. I keep up my exercise. Added some more.
You look great fit, by the way. For listeners to know that.
3 years later almost, because that was 2022, I wasn't doing strength training. So some of the same exercises I learned from cardio rehab, I still do those.
Good.
2 days a week.
Yeah.
So I incorporated strength training into my exercise regimen in addition to cardio. But one of the things that really is really, for me, I want to be around. My son is 10 now. And there's days I just go through this process of just thinking how what life would be in his life be without me. So one of the things that keeps me going and focused on just living healthy and just conveying to my family members, right? Even my wife, she was pre-diabetic, right? Sharing with her some of my lessons that I learned and just trying to like overall just make sure we're just staying healthy as a family.
Healthy as you can be. Yeah. Healthy families. I have a 10-year-old too. They're such at that age. They're just so ready for the world.
Yes, they are.
And they're like sponges, right? They just pick up everything and you realize at that point when they start to talk back to you. I don't mean talk back in a bad way. I just mean like have conversations.
It's okay to say it sometimes in a bad way.
Sometimes they do.
So that's something to look forward to.
I just mean, you know, when they really, they have personalities and they're becoming people and you realize how much influence you have over them. And I can feel that from you and know that experience and know how important it was at that time and then moving forward too for you. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you,
It's
Shannon.
very relatable. And I think we all feel that way sometimes.
Yep,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Had you ever heard of cardiac rehab before and even knew it was
No.
something that was there for after
Even
a
the
heart
concept
attack?
of it,
Yeah, the
'cause,
concept of it. Yeah.
Not at all. I heard a heart attack before. Never heard of cardiac rehab. Never knew, besides what I saw on television, what it involved. So it was
Okay.
all new to me.
Yeah. And how important was that program for you afterwards and getting you to your goal?
The validation of that program was critically important. I don't think I would have been able to just mentally prepare for my goal of even just running a marathon, right? Because even after that program, I went out and like Nemeth said earlier, just the slightest pain or uncomfortable feeling when I was running, it just made me nervous.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine if I hadn't gone through that cardiac rehab program, feeling as confident about going through my training. Because as you might imagine, even through training, right, you're running 10, 12, 16, 18 miles just on weekends alone.
That's a lot of miles, which
Yeah.
is great, I
Yes.
think, you know.
Well, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excellent. I'll
Good.
say that, right? And this is even with the schedule that I keep today,
Yeah.
right? I work for a small business and we have a small executive team that I'm a part of, and we're trying to grow this business. And we've been in business for 4 years now, and it's demanding. It requires a lot of hours. But what I've been through has taught me to also set boundaries.
Good.
Right? I've set boundaries when it comes to turning things off at a certain time and knowing my limits in terms of, hey, I'm going to get at least 7 hours of sleep, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to at least have a decent breakfast, and I'm not going to rush through lunch and things like that.
Good. At the beginning, I said you're a heart attack survivor. We talk about cancer survivors and
Yes.
we don't often think about it from a heart attack standpoint, but you are a survivor. You went through something that was life-changing and continues to impact your life in some form or fashion. So you are a survivor.
For you to put it in those terms, Shanna, I don't even think about it that way. Thinking about it, the survivor, in a way that there's a chance I could not be here today. If I, one, had not listened to my wife, right? And two, if we didn't have such excellent care and facilities and tools that we have today.
That's awesome. Why is it important for you to share your story? Like you took some time to come in today. You've shared your story through Adventist Healthcare in the past. Why is that important for you?
It's so important because I have family members that struggle with things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, obesity, right? And it's important for me that family members, one, know my story and know that it is real, right? Once you're there, right?
There's no going back.
There's no going back. And there are things that we can control, right? I advocate for healthy living. I advocate for just being an example for my family members and whoever, matter of fact, would listen, right? If there's a wider audience that my story helps, and just to know that, hey, you may not have a history of obesity or high cholesterol, but you may have something in your DNA or that might affect this, right? But just let them know that, hey, you can get through it, right? We do have the services. And then just, I think one of the things I share even with my siblings, my brother, a lot is, hey, make sure you're going to the doctor, getting the annual checkup, because you never know, right? If you're getting those checks, it might be a heart attack or it might be something else. So that's why it's super important for me.
I love that. Can see your doctor, pay attention, even though you had nothing prior and didn't think that, the fact that you got to the hospital fast, you and your wife paid attention to that, and and that is so important. So whether your story encourages someone to go to the doctor more regularly, or reminds them, hey, if I'm having those symptoms, I need to get to the hospital quick. Either way, it's so important.
I also like the fact that, even after the heart attack, you went through your procedures, you didn't give up, right? You had the race at the end of the year and you were like, you know what, I'm going to make it because these are the steps I need to do and I will make it. I love that part of it, after surgery and after the hospital stay, what happens? You don't just stop living. You continue your life. You get motivated even more, if anything. But I think, that's an important part of that too. That's such an important thing. You continue with life.
Yeah, you show that it doesn't stop.
No.
And you don't have to change. You can still do the things that you love.
Yep.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
And I think it's important for everyone to find that whatever's going to drive you, because I think if I hadn't run that, then I would have still had that mental block.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you keeping up with your appointments and all of that?
I am.
Good.
I am.
Okay.
At this point with my cardiologist, I'm meeting at least one time a year. And then with my primary care provider, I'm meeting one time a year as well. And I am quick, right? A couple of months ago, I happened to have a similar feeling, and it turned out not to be a heart attack, but I went to the hospital. So I've learned to listen to my body and react appropriately.
Yeah. And have you had any races over the past couple
what's
years?
next?
I have.
What's next? Let's talk about what's next.
So I love racing. So October, I did the Army 10 miler. That was special to me. That was my first long distance run back in 2008. So I hadn't run it in a few years. So I ran that one. Earlier this year, I did the Miami Half Marathon, and I have a group of friends that normally go with that one once a year. And I tried to get in Tokyo again.
My God.
Didn't get
So
selected,
exciting.
unfortunately, for Tokyo this time. But Sydney's out there. Sydney, Australia just got added as a seventh world major. So I'm looking at maybe possibly trying to do that one for 2025.
All right. You got to share some pictures if you go.
Absolutely.
We want to see you running that one and getting across the finish line.
I'd love to see that too.
Yeah. All right. Is there any other questions, Nimit?
No.
Joel, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I just want to thank you both for what you're doing in terms of recruiting, advocating, the philanthropy that you're doing here at Adventist Health. A lot of folks like me, before having a heart attack, we just don't realize all these things are going on. And sometimes it seems like it's in the background, right? But you're doing all this to help people like me that get in these moments where we need the medical care, and then we still have to recover as well from it. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, raising awareness, and Nimit behind the scenes brings in all those great people and nurses that you experienced when you came into Adventist Healthcare at rehabilitation and at White Oak. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing that. We always love to hear about the good experiences. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to Joel one more time. To learn more about Adventist Healthcare's heart care services, and if you'd like to find a physician, visit trustedheartcare.com. You can also be a part of the life-saving care at Adventist Healthcare through generous donations. When you give, we are able to help more people through services like the cardiac rehabilitation program, new equipment, and other services that help our community. We'll include a link in today's show notes if you'd like to donate today. Let us know if you like the podcast by leaving a review, or you can email podcast@adventisthealthcare.com and let us know what healthcare topics you want to know more about. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get all of our new episodes. Thank you and be well.